Thanks. All right, here we go. Everybody feeling good and carb loaded and ready to fall out and take a nap? I'm going to try to keep you awake for the next 45 minutes. Who here in the last 30 days, when somebody's asked you how you're feeling, has said, I'm busy? Raise your hand. And then just keep your hand up and look around the room. Who here, and keep your hands up, who here in the last 30 days has created a pile or moved a pile of papers or digital files on their computer desktop and said, I'll get back to that later? Keep your hands up. If you need a second hand, you can raise that. Right? Who here has a pile of things at home, projects that you're waiting to finish or even start in your garage, in your trunk, on the floor of your closet, someplace else? Raise your hand. Now look around the room. Now give yourselves a round of applause. Good. We're in good company. That's all it means, is that everybody, almost everybody, lives in the story of too much to do and not enough time. So let's get right into it, and I'm going to give you as much information as I can in the next 45 minutes so you can turn the corner and make some serious lasting changes for yourself. The first thing I'm going to do is just show you that if you go to my website, andrewmellen.com/CT, contest 19, you can download this deck. You can download a set of core value exercises and some other free things. So you're welcome to hit this website and download some free materials. I'm also going to show you that we have an agenda for today. I shared this at our speaker dinner a couple nights ago. I have a zero tolerance for meetings without agendas. I don't go to them. Now, I work for myself, so I can make my own rules. Even so, I do not go to meetings. If anybody on my team shows up without an agenda, I lovingly but directly dismiss them and say, come back when you have an agenda, because I don't know what we're going to be doing, and so I don't want to waste your time or my time. So even though this isn't technically a meeting, I want you to know that I know where we're going. I have an agenda. I'm a safe driver. You're in good hands. So we're not going to crash the car. I've done this more than once. So you can... For me, if you are used to being a good student and taking copious notes and not actually being present in the room, I'm going to ask you to work against that experience for yourself so that you actually stay here with me, right? Because I don't want you to get back to your office and have a ton of notes and have no recollection of what we actually covered because you scribbled everything down, but you weren't actually present for it. And then it's going to end up in a drawer. You're never going to look at it. In 3 years, you're going to pull out that binder and you're going to go, what was he talking about? Clutter, deferred decisions. I don't remember anything, right? So just stay in the room with me for the next 45 minutes, and I think it'll be a much better experience for you. All right? The next thing we're going to do is we're going to breathe together. Now, I am not a particularly woo-woo person, and I'm guessing that you are probably not a particularly woo-woo crowd. Even so, we're going to take 3 breaths together so that we all get grounded and we're in the same space together. This is not a test, so you don't need to be looking at your neighbors and wondering, are they breathing correctly? We're not keeping score, and I understand that this is a testing conference. So in particular, we don't need to be evaluating each other. We're just breathing for ourselves. We're going to breathe in on a count of 5. We're going to hold it for 1. And we're going to exhale on a count of 5. I will be breathing with you. So I will not be counting very audibly, but I'm going to gesture with my fingers so that we can all do this together. So just, shake it out a little bit. And here we go. And it's amazing. This will reset the room. And this is a great technique that you can use for any meeting that you're in, even if it's a meeting of 2 people or a meeting of 1 person, just you and your many personalities. You can do this yourself, and it will completely reset your central nervous system. It's factory installed. You don't have to pay for it. So here we go on a count of 5. Amazing. We're all in sync. We're all in the same room. Mind-blowing. Happens all the time. Oh, he's going to do something to me. There. He's going to turn me on. Awesome. Now I'm going to give you just 15 seconds to set an intention for the time that we're together. And if you came here just like, I want to learn more about time management, I feel confident that you will do that in the next 40 minutes, right? But I want you to set a very specific intention for yourself. Like, I want to learn how to stop double booking. I want to learn how to stop people pleasing. Something more specific, because the more specific you are, the more specific my answer will be. And understand that when we're done with this session, I will also be around outside. So if you have questions that we didn't get to, and I didn't cover your information, you can grab me outside in the hallway, all right? So I'm literally 15 seconds, and the clock is going now. That was an actual 15 seconds. So also a takeaway, right? If you've got a story that says, oh, I can't start working on that, I don't have enough time. In 15 seconds, you could have started to get antsy and a little agitated, like, come on, pick up the pace, Mellen. We got stuff to cover. So understand that story, and by story, I mean everything that's running back here in your lizard brain. This, if you are not making your choices up here with mindful attention to what you're doing, this narrative is running all of your choices for you. You're just a robot. I'm going to share a few costs of disorganization because I like to ground this work in hard math. You know, often I'm slotted into soft skills, which I don't even know what that means. Like, these are soft skills as opposed to hard skills. This is all math, right? Disorganization and poor time management is all about the math. So if you like math, we're on the same page. And if you've got a story that says, oh, I'm very creative, I'm not very good at math, this is bodega math. If you can go into a store and buy a pack of chewing gum, you can do the math that I'm talking about. It's 2 or 3 digits at the most. 60 minutes in an hour, 24 hours in a day, 168 hours in a week. Again, if you can buy a pack of chewing gum and get change back for your dollar, you can do the math that I'm talking about. So I'm going to poke a hole in that little narrative that says, I'm not good at math. The first statistic I'm sharing with you is that 80% of the paper and the information we keep, we will never use again. And this is how powerful story is. You could be thinking, oh, Andrew, you don't know me? I'm an excellent researcher. I have volumes and volumes of things, and I don't know exactly when I'm going to get around to using them, but this is excellent information, and I am the exception to your rule. And this is what I'm going to tell you. I've been doing this work for 23 years. I have worked with well over 100,000 people. I'm sure you are all very brilliant at what you do. You are my rule. You are not the exception. I have yet to meet the exception to this rule. We are interrupted by communication technology every 10 minutes, and on average, it takes 23 minutes to recover from an interruption. Again, super simple math. 2 interruptions, 2 recoveries, it's an hour gone. If you get to the end of your day and you think, good grief, I was crazy busy today and I got nothing done. And then you will tell yourself one of your 200 lies, which we'll talk about in just a second, which will be like, now that the office is quiet, I'm going to stay late and do my real work. Right? And now it's midnight and you're still doing your real work instead of doing your real work during the time that they're paying you to do your real work. So let's be clear that this is one of the huge, when we talk about the 7 deadly time thieves, interruptions is the #1 time thief that is derailing everybody's ability to stay focused. As I said, the average adult will tell 200 lies a day. Now understand that 2/3 of them will never leave your mouth. You will be telling them to yourself. But a good 1/3 of them will come out of your mouth and it'll go something like this. Hey, Lisa, I'm so sorry to bother you. Total bullshit. If I was sorry to bother Lisa, I wouldn't be bothering Lisa. One of my 200 lies, it would be so much better to come up to Lisa and say, hey, Lisa, I'll bet you had a plan for the day and that plan is going in the toilet. Whatever it was that you thought you were going to be doing, we need to set that aside because I need this report by 4 o'clock today. When that report is finished, you can resume whatever's on your plate. And if you need help reprioritizing what you were going to do in that remaining hour or 2 of work, I'm on board to help you do it. I'm in complete integrity. I understand that she's not a cardboard cutout who's just coming into animation when I interact with her, and otherwise she goes back to 2D land and, you know, she had no plan for the day. The average adult will waste 1 year of their life looking for lost or misplaced items. Now, understand, regardless of how frugal you might be, nobody is going to spend a year of their life looking for their mobile phone or their wallet, their credit card. I call this nickel and diming ourselves out of a year of our life because it's 5 minutes here, it's 10 minutes there. You will tell yourself one of your 200 lies, I'm going to make up that lost time. But here's the thing, you can't make up time once it's been spent. When you tell yourself, I'm going to get up extra early tomorrow morning, it is 2:30 in the morning for everybody in your time zone. It's not 2:30 for you and 3 o'clock for them. You don't get to bank time. You can bank money, but you cannot bank time. So underlying everything is shifting our mindset of how we look at the math and how we look at story and how we make our choices when it comes to time management. So anybody here study journalism? A couple of us. Okay. There's a thing in journalism that says don't bury the lead. I want to be clear, like you came to a time management training because nobody wants to come to a self-management training, right? But that's what we're doing. This is all about self-management. You can't manage time. So I don't want to trick you any more than I already have into thinking that what I'm going to teach you how to do is to tame the clock. I'm going to teach you how to stay focused and tame yourself in relationship to the clock, because the clock is going to do what it does. It's going to reset itself every night at midnight. If you are used to solving problems for a living or in your life, as a professional organizer, I am always looking for what's wrong with this picture. It's great for me professionally. It sucks in a personal context, right? Nobody wants to constantly have things pointed out to them of like, this is what's wrong with this picture, right? They think that everything is working and I'm the person who's poking a hole in it. So the takeaway here for me is if you are used to having your eye trained on what the problem is, I'm going to suggest that you give yourself, particularly when it comes to time management, 5 minutes at the most to talk about what is upsetting you and then move into solution. Solution is where we have agency and we can actually affect change. Problem is just complaining, ultimately, right? After you've identified what the problem is, we're done identifying the problem. Let's get into solution. If you live in a world where FOMO is important to you, the fear of missing out, understand right now there is a concert happening in the world, we're not attending it. There's a soccer match, we are not at it watching anybody play ball. There's a sale happening, somebody's getting married, somebody's being buried, somebody's being born. We are not attending any of those things right now, and the quality of our life is not being negatively impacted because we are not there, because we have chosen to be here. So this idea of like whatever else is happening out there, whatever shiny object or event is out there is somehow sexier than what I've already committed to doing is one of your 200 lies. If this isn't important to you, then you should excuse yourself. And I mean, you could do it literally now if you wanted to, or metaphorically, when you get back to your offices, if you are spending time doing things that aren't important to you and don't move the needle forward for you at work or at home, you should probably be doing something else. But if this is what is important to you, then you should have all of your focus on it until you're finished with it and then moving on to the next thing. When it comes to time management and stuff, literally clutter and objects, right? This is another mindset shift. We often feel burdened and overwhelmed. The reality is we are in a state of abundance. There are places in the world where I am not teaching time management training, right? Where people have a goat, they have a hut, and a bowl. They do not have too much stuff, and they do not have too much to do. They have enough, right? We are struggling with too much to do. So a little bit of mindset shift into gratitude and appreciation. It's all framing, right? And it's not, I mean, you can call it a game that you're playing with yourself, but this is the thing about clutter and stuff. If you are trying to simplify your life and get rid of things, if you will actually acknowledge a little appreciation for these things served me at one time, they no longer do. I'm willing to release them now. That is a much better attitude to have and a mindset to have than doing battle with things. This is the thing about things. Things are inanimate. They will outlast you. They will not get tired before you get tired. So if you think you're going to vanquish inanimate objects just because of your will, your will and your self-determination, they will always outlast you. The last time you tried to get organized and you came out of the garage or some space after 9 or 10 hours, you were covered in filth and you were not finished and you had your butt kicked, the next time you walk into that space, you're already feeling defeated. Failure breeds failure, success breeds success. So instead of talking about narrative goals, we want to shift into math goals, and we'll talk about that in a little bit. This is it, right? Clutter is nothing more than deferred decisions. So the first thing that you set down wasn't necessarily clutter. You set it down, you said, I'm going to get back to that later. Far too many things that I have to do right now, but I'll get back to this later. The next thing that you set down on top of it, this light bulb went on for you. You're like, oh my God. This is brilliant strategy. I'm going to make a pile of things that go together. I'm not going to put them away now. I'm going to put them away later. But this is like, why didn't I think of this before? I'm just going to make piles of things that are in common with each other. And that will totally jumpstart my process when I'm ready, whenever that is, one of your 200 lies. When I'm ready to put this stuff away, I will totally look at it. I'm already halfway there. Right? And in the meantime, if you look around your home or your office, they're just piles of crap piled up, waiting for someday to appear. So here's the good news and the bad news, right? We already know that 80% of the stuff that we're holding on to, we're never going to use again. You could just put it all in the recycle bin, and again, the quality of your life would not be negatively impacted. And this is how powerful story is. Story says, oh my God, Andrew, that sounds amazing. I would love to do that. But what if there's something really important in that pile? Now you're going to tell yourself one of your 200 lies. I swear to God, I will only look at it one more time, and then I will make the decisions, and then I will be done with it. So you know what your time is worth. You get to decide, right? I mean, do you bill at $150 an hour? Do you bill at $500 an hour? Do you bill at $37.92 an hour? It doesn't matter. But if you're going to spend 30 or 40 hours weeding through a bunch of crap, only to find a recipe for lemongrass creme brulee that you ripped out of a magazine 4 years ago thinking, this would be great for a dessert at a dinner party that you have never thrown because you work too much and your house is a mess, so you've never had anybody over to your house to have the lemongrass creme brulee. But you're holding on to the recipe just in case. Because, I mean, you could never find it on Epicurious in probably 12.3 seconds. We need the magazine article, right? So only you know what your time is worth, but if you're going to drill down into that pile to try to find something and you don't find the title to your car or the deed to your house, but just a bunch of crap, won't you feel worse having spent all that time on a lie to yourself? So, as we said, right? Raise your hands one more time for all the people who have said, I'm busy in the last 30 days, right? So this is what that means, right? I mean, busy is bullshit. Busy is the new normal. If you don't live in your parents' basement and they're doing your laundry and making your meals for you, you're busy. And you will be busy until you're in a diaper in a nursing home. Really. I did one of these talks a couple of weeks ago. There was a woman in the front row. She was 95 years old. She's been retired for 25 years. She's busy. There's too much for her to do in the day, and she gets to make up her day. So understand that this idea that busy means something, it's just like it's the parents on Charlie Brown just want. It means nothing. You have to stop saying it because busy is the new normal, right? And so this is the story that when I'm talking about story, there isn't enough time. There is enough time for what's important when you know what's important. If you don't know what's important, then you're just going to be running around on that gerbil wheel making yourself crazy. I don't know where to start. Some people will say that they are confused when they don't like their choices. This sucks more. If I wait long enough, one of the sucky things will fall off. I'll be left with just one of the sucky things, and then I can tell myself one of my 200 lies. I never get a break. I always end up with the short end of the stick. Everybody else seems to get what they want, but I don't get what I want. Well, that's not fair, right? But you made that choice. You're the one who waited for something magical to happen to your agenda and for something to fall off, and then you complained about what you were left with. All of that was your choice. The people I work with are worse than I am. It's not a race to the bottom. So you don't get bonus points for being better than the worst person that you can imagine that you either work or live with, right? You can't point down the hall and say, well, Bob's a hot mess. I'm better than Bob. That you don't win anything for that being your reality. Anybody here know Luther, right? Or Sherlock Holmes? We want to be channeling our inner detective. We are looking for just the facts, no story. The story is not going to help us solve the case, but the facts are. So these are our problems. We base our choice on our comfort rather than our values. And understand, everybody in this room, completely comfortable. Food, clothing, and shelter is taken care of. You're wearing clean clothes unless you chose not to wear clean clothes. You are not hungry unless you're doing some sort of crazy fasting thing because they just served you food. So, and the roof is not leaking over our heads. So comfort is taken care of. So when you start to tell one of your 200 lies about, oh, that's outside my comfort zone, right? Really, all things considered, you're not living on a subway grate. Your comfort is already taken care of. You can let go of this idea that your short-term comfort is more important than living in alignment and making choices in alignment with your values. Your long-term values are where you're going to find deep, abiding joy and happiness, not in short-term comfort. We allow unimportant interruptions to derail us. We say yes to unsuitable requests. Who in here would consider themselves a people pleaser? Raise your hand. Yeah, so that's not great. And we defer decisions. So we procrastinate. And we don't know our concentrative limits. If you have ADHD or you have difficulty staying focused for more than 7 minutes at a time, 7 minutes becomes your new sweet spot. You have no business setting a timer for 45 minutes, and after 7 minutes, you're reading something online, or you're shopping, or you're doing something, but you are not doing what you started to do 7 minutes ago. Turn a deficit into an asset. If that's your breaking point, then make that your pivot point. Work in 7-minute increments. You can get a tremendous amount done in 7 minutes if that is where you stop focusing. These are our solutions. Our calendar is to time what our budget is to money. If you are running your day off of a series of Post-its or notes that you scribbled on the back of an envelope, all bets are off that you're going to get the things done that you want to get done. Everything needs to be on your calendar, quantified, and accounted for, and then you have to keep the appointments that you make with yourself. We need to exchange excellence for perfection. Everybody can get to excellent. Nobody is going to get to perfect. Except maybe, what was it? Audible has no bugs in their app. Is that the case? Right. So maybe a few people can get to perfect. Most of us are going to just shoot for excellent. We need to stop deferring to the future. As I said before, this is the only moment when we have agency. Right now, it is 1:22 p.m. Eastern Time. This is the only moment when we actually have agency to affect any change. 1:21, over. 1:23, it's a promise. We hope we get there, but no guarantees. 1:22 is the only place you can affect change. You need to delegate. Everybody in here has somebody or something that they can delegate to. And if your perfectionism is keeping you from delegating because, oh, I'm the only person who can do this, that's one of your 200 lies. And the last thing you need to do is eat the frog. Who here has heard the expression eat the frog before? Raise your hand. Awesome. So for those of you who are not, it was coined by Mark Twain and made popular by a colleague of mine named Brian Tracy. The idea is if you eat a live frog first thing in the morning, the rest of the day gets better. And it is a metaphor. You don't literally have to eat a live frog. But you have to eat the frog. And you can tell yourself one of your 200 lies, oh, I will eat the frog, but I'm going to eat it this afternoon. I'm going to batter fry it and have it with some tartar sauce. It'll be much tastier then. No, the frog needs to be eaten first thing in the morning so that the rest of the day is built on it. And we'll talk more about that when we get to procrastination. So, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. I don't have a calendar with a someday on it, and neither do any of you. If you are scheduling things for someday, you might as well say never, because it is never going to happen. You are telling one of your 200 lies. Every task has an end. That's what makes it a task, right? So, I'm showing you a residential example of a clean basket of clothes. For those of you who think that a basket of clean clothes on your bedroom floor is the end of doing the laundry, you are mistaken. The end of doing the laundry is when the basket is empty, the clothes have been put back into the bureau, and the basket's now on top of the dryer ready for more clean clothes. That's the full arc of the task. So if you, metaphorically speaking, get to the end of your day and you think, God, I started a million things today, didn't finish a single one of them. It could be because you kept setting the laundry down. You said, oh, I'll get back to this later, right? When I have more time. Right now I have to go put out this fire, but I swear to God, I'll come back and put the laundry away in a bit. And then it just builds up behind you, a wake of things. And then metaphorically, 3 weeks later, you're down to the last 2 pairs of socks in the bottom of the basket. And you're like, well, at this point, why bother? I'm just going to do laundry again tomorrow. This time I will put the laundry away. And that's the same thing that happens at work, right? We start something, I'll get back to it. I swear to God I will. And then the deadline comes up and then you're scrambling or you're pulling an all-nighter to try to get something finished, right? If you want a simple life, you need to make simple choices. So this is certainly America, but even Western culture, right? We are fed the promise of convenience and alignment with our values. It's a perfect little plastic biodegradable clamshell, right? We can compost the plastic and it's triple washed organic lettuce. Makes my life, I can have salad in a box. Awesome, right? But the truth is, I have found sand in the bottoms of these, so I still wash the lettuce. And on top of washing the lettuce, I now have a piece of plastic because while it might be compostable in an industrial strength compost pile, I can't throw it on my pile of greens and browns in my backyard. Those leaves and those sticks are never going to get hot enough to melt that plastic. So the promise is convenience. The reality is 3 more steps to actually making a salad than just buying a head of lettuce. So now I'm going to give you guys 1 minute to talk to your neighbors about something that you brought into your life. It could be personal or professional, I don't care. But I want everybody to turn to a neighbor and share one story about something that you brought into your life that came with the promise of convenience that actually complicated your life. And it could be an app you downloaded on your phone, could be a piece of technology, could be the bread maker that you bought thinking, oh, this year I'm going to make healthy meals for my family, and I'm going to start baking bread, and you made bread exactly once, and now it sits in the garage or in the back of your closet, never being used again. So I don't care what it is, but I'm going to give you 1 minute on the clock. Turn to your neighbor. Go. Excellent. That's time. Did anybody not have something to share? No? Him. Cool. Let's give him a round of applause. Cool. And you could also clap for yourselves. All right. When the house is literally on fire, urgent and important are completely in sync. If the house is not literally on fire, urgent will always trump important. Because urgent is loud, it's busy, it's shiny, it's flashy, it's going to steal your focus. It's why it is essential that we know what is important. What are your core values? And as I said before, you can go to my website, you can download a series of core value exercises. I have them in my book. And you don't need to do mine. You can do a Google search. You'll get 1 million hits for core value exercises in probably 7 seconds. So you don't have to do mine, but I encourage you to do them. You could have a story that says, oh, I know what's important to me, Andrew, right? My family's important to me. And then the reality is that you're always 15 minutes late for your kid's soccer game. So in those 15 minutes, your kid is preparing to go to therapy and talk about why his parents don't ever show up on time. And you've got the story that says, oh, I would die for my kids, but I guess I couldn't stop sending that last email or answering one more phone call before I walked out the door, right? So that's the reality. That's what they're experiencing, regardless of the story that you're telling yourself, one of your 200 lies. So I encourage you to do them. If you've ever walked into a team meeting and somebody says, hey, I think the first thing we should do is X, and you think, God, if that was the last thing we did, this project would still be successful. That is the stupidest thing anybody has ever said out loud, right? If you do a set of core value exercises before you begin the project, now everybody's on the same page. We don't get into he said, she said, or like that's a stupid idea. We don't need to get into personalities. It stays right in the center of like, is that in alignment with the values of the project or not? It becomes very easy to arbit what we should do or what we should not do, right? Anybody here seen The Wizard of Oz? Raise your hand. Okay, so for those of you who haven't, you can Google it and then Hulu it. So, Dorothy Gale gets swept up in a tornado and ends up in Oz. And the house falls on the witch and she kills her. The house kills her. And then Glinda, the good witch, shows up and says, hey, put those ruby slippers on your feet. Don't take them off for anything. And then splits. And then we don't see Glinda until like 3 minutes before the movie's over. And she shows up and says, oh, you want to go home to Kansas? Oh, you got the ruby slippers. Just click your heels 3 times. You'll be home like that. It's totally easy. Like, I'm sorry, I had to kill witches and pour water on them. I had flying monkeys chasing me. I fell asleep with poppies. All kinds of crap happened. And I could, 45 minutes ago, I could have just gone home. So the takeaway for me here is that we all have the ruby slippers. We know what's important to us. We just need a little bit of time to be thoughtful and reflective so that we're crystal clear about them instead of vague and in story about it. We understand what they are and they're right up here driving our choices every day, right? When it comes to getting organized and managing your time, these are your best friends. Timer and a stopwatch. Timer is to quantify everything. After today, I never want you ever saying that my goal is a narrative goal. Like, I'm going to work on this until I'm finished. Because I don't know what finished means. But if you say, I'm going to work on this for 45 minutes, when 45 minutes goes off, I know that 45 minutes elapsed. So, as I said before, failure breeds failure, success breeds success. The last time you tried to do something you were unsuccessful, you're already feeling beat up when you start it the next time. If instead you said, oh, I'm going to work on this for 45 minutes and the timer goes off, you're like, look at me, I'm a rock star. I didn't think I was going to last 15 minutes. 45 minutes, I nailed that. I'm going to set the timer for another 45 minutes and climb back in, right? As a rule, barring the ADHD diagnosis, don't share it with me, HIPAA laws, right? But no less than 15 minutes, no more than 3 hours without a break. As a rule, those are best practices, right? The stopwatch is to time everything that you have a story about, but no quantifiable facts. So you have a story that says it takes me 40 minutes to get to work in the morning. Maybe. Maybe on a good day, it takes you 38 minutes to get to work, and on a bad day, it takes you 57 minutes to get to work. And you've come up with some cockamamie mean number for yourself of like, oh, I'll just call it 40, right? I have a client on the Upper East Side of Manhattan. I live in Hell's Kitchen. I want it to take me 20 minutes to get to her apartment because I don't bill, when I'm in town, I don't bill for travel time. I only bill for travel time when I'm out of town, right? So I resent the 27 minutes extra that it takes because it takes me 47 minutes door to door to get to her place. I resent those 27 minutes and I can't bill for them. So I can either pretend that it only takes me 20 minutes because I only want it to take me 20 minutes, or I can budget 47 minutes, right? If I budget less than 47 minutes, I'm going to have to tell one of my 200 lies and blame it on the 6 train. So So I'm going to encourage that for the next 7 days, you download, who here is familiar with Toggle, T-O-G-G-L, right? I'm going to encourage you to download Toggle or some other timing app. Time yourself for 7 days. This is a compassionate exercise. This is not a gotcha exercise. So this is not to humiliate yourself, but just to really see how you are spending your actual time. Because you have a story that says, oh, you know, I'm a ninja. I just get on email and I get off email 5 minutes here, 5 minutes there. I'm never in my inbox, right? And then we time you and we discover actually you're in your inbox 4 times a day for 37 minutes every time. Whatever it is, we're going to discover how you're actually spending your time versus how you really are spending your time. And when you do this exercise, just do it as if you love the person who's doing the exercise. It's not to humiliate yourself. Winners do what they have to do. Everyone else does what they want to do. If you want to be a winner, if you want to exceed your expectations, you have to put in extra effort, right? If a B is good enough, then let yourself off the hook. Stop holding yourself to a criteria for achievement, because you're not going to get there and you're just going to make yourself miserable. So that's like a double lose, right? There are places in our life where a B is totally fine. There are other places where an A is where we need to get to. Only you know the difference. But again, if you're comparing yourself to elite athletes or the people who are at the top of whatever it is that you're trying to achieve, and you're not willing to put in the same amount of time that they put in to become the experts that they are, you're only going to be unhappy and nothing is going to change. Now, if everybody would please join me in doing this. This is my favorite part of the day. Get your hands up high. This is trademark technology I'm sharing with you. And I want you to repeat after me. One home for everything.
One home for everything.
Like with like.
Like with like.
Something in.
Something in.
Something out.
Something out.
Good. We're going to do it one more time. A little more enthusiasm, folks. Trademark technology. You're leaving the room with a trademark. Well, I own the trademark, but you're getting the technology. One home for everything.
One home for everything.
Like with like.
Like with like.
Something in.
Something in.
Something out.
Something out.
Give yourselves a round of applause. You are now official Clutter warriors. That's direct transmission. Okay? One home for everything means everything has one home, only one home, not open to debate. So where you keep your keys can be different from where you keep your keys or where you keep your keys. But your keys have a home, your keys have a home, your keys have a home. They can only ever be one of two places: in your hand unlocking something or in their home. You apply this rule, you'll find anything in 30 seconds or less guaranteed. Like with like means all like objects live together, not most of them. So we don't keep most of the tools in the toolbox, but keep the flathead screwdriver in the junk drawer, because we have a story that says, oh, I don't want to have to go all the way to the toolbox to get the screwdriver. I'm just going to give myself a little time management shortcut and keep it in this drawer. But then when you don't remember it, so now you're out in the garage or wherever looking through the toolbox thinking, God, I know I have a flathead screwdriver. This is ridiculous. Why do I have a pipe cutter, but I don't have a screwdriver? I guess I have to go to the hardware store and buy another screwdriver. And then 3 more weeks later, you open the drawer and oh, there's that flathead screwdriver. God, that was so clever of me. Why didn't I remember that? Now I will never forget it again, and you will forget it in 30 seconds. So one home for everything and like with like is how we get organized. Something in, something out is how we stay organized, because once we achieve stuff equilibrium, whatever that is to you, right? I don't care. There are no rules that say what enough stuff is. You live in a 4,000 square foot apartment and you have a 1,000 square foot walk-in closet. You can have 150 pairs of shoes and, 4,000 shirts. I don't care what the number is. But whatever enough is, when you've determined it and the space has determined it, it's very easy to stay organized. When you buy the 151st pair of shoes, it must be because you're ready to retire one of the first 150. It's very easy. All of the time that we spend consuming things that we don't need is all wasted time. And then when you tell yourself one of your 200 lies that there's not enough time for me to write that novel or build that model or hike Kilimanjaro or volunteer at the, my kid's school or the neighborhood church, whatever it is, I wish I had the time. Well, you would if you weren't shopping and consuming things that you don't need. Again, if you have too much stuff, you have too much stuff. You don't need more. You just need to curate what you already have. Now we'll talk about the 7 deadly time thieves. Interruptions, multitasking, overcommitting, poor planning, email, meetings, and procrastination. I love these. Interruptions. Who can tell me the difference between an interruption and a distraction? Raise your hand, please. Anybody? Please.
An interruption stops you momentarily. A distraction keeps your attention.
Not exactly.
Interruption is external and distraction is internal.
Excellent. Give him a round of applause. That is exactly it. Interruptions happen to us. Unless you have multiple personality disorder, you can't interrupt yourself. Other people will interrupt you. Things will interrupt you, but you can only distract yourself, right? So these are my top 3 tips for minimizing or eliminating distractions and interruptions. The first thing to do is shift the culture. If you work in a place or you live in a place where it's okay to come up to people and say, hey, Lisa, got a minute? Right? And that's just normal. It doesn't matter that Lisa's in the middle of doing something. The only thing that matters is what I want, right? The number one thing you can do is shift the culture. And you can certainly shift the culture personally. You can do it team-wise. You can do it division or department-wise. And if you have buy-in from management, you can do it across the culture in the organization, right? You don't get to say, oh, well, the culture's just messed up and I can't affect any change. You can still manage yourself differently. You can make time constraints known. So if somebody comes up to you and says, hey, you got 5 minutes, you can say, I do have 5 minutes, and set a timer. If 12 minutes later, Tanya and I are still talking, Tanya knows 2 things about me. I have bad boundaries and I can't tell time. Not useful as a manager or as a colleague. So it would be much better to say after 5 minutes when the timer goes off, Tanya, we're out of time. So if we need more time, I need you to just book an appointment with me and we'll take as long as we need to solve whatever the question is that we're working on. But in this moment now, I have to pivot to another task, right? And the last thing is to turn all notifications off. Unless it is required as part of your job that you are beeped and chirped at, I encourage you not to be beeped and chirped at throughout your day. Multitasking. She can't do it, he can't do it. Multitasking is one of your 200 lies. If you've got it on your resume, take it off because you're just a liar. Nobody can do open heart surgery and bake a cake at the exact same time. You can shift from task to task very rapidly, but you cannot do things at the exact same time and be effective. And the last slide in the deck, which I'm not going to show you, but if you download it, you'll see there's a whole bunch of brain science that will back this up. So if you've got a story that's running right now, oh, Andrew, I can do the dishes and talk on the phone. I'm going to tell you that you will spend more time scrubbing the egg off the bottom of that plate because you're concentrating on the conversation, or you're going to be so focused on scrubbing the egg off that you're going to ask the person, hey, I didn't catch that. Would you repeat yourself? So I promise you, whatever the story is that you've got about multitasking is one of your 200 lies. Let's talk about people pleasing. Okay, no is a complete sentence. What you can do is you can give an explanation, but no excuses. And we all know the difference between an explanation and an excuse, right? The dog ate your homework is an excuse. It's not an explanation. You can do a trade-off. I can't do it today. I can do it Thursday at 4 p.m. That's real, right? Not now is, you just wasted time. I don't know what to do with not now. I knew not now in a moment. I didn't need more. Where are we going with that, right? The last thing is the only thing better than good news is bad news fast. If the answer is no, tell me no now. Don't tell me you're going to get back to me in 48 hours. Because I think in those 48 hours, you're trying to rearrange your schedule to make it happen. You're trying to buy enough time so that when you come back and tell me no, I'm not going to be upset with you. I would much rather you just let me go find the next yes instead of holding me hostage for 48 hours. And we certainly don't want anybody doing it to us. We don't want to do it to anybody else. And the last thing is that saying no to something is saying yes to something that we value more. It is not a glass half empty mindset. It's a glass half full. You're just doubling down on the thing that you've already committed to doing. Now, again, if the house is literally on fire, if it's urgent and important, it might trump everything that you thought you were going to be doing. But if it's just something that looks fun, but it isn't in alignment with your values, you need to figure out a different way of prioritizing it, right? Poor planning. Everybody gets 168 hours in a week. Nobody gets 172 because they're really good. Nobody gets 160 because they're really bad. Everybody gets the same amount of time. How you manage that time is up to you. And if you think about it, even if you're working 40 or 50 or even 60 hours a week, you still have 2/3 of the week is completely under your control. So if you're living in that story that says, oh, I'm trading my time for money and I have no agency in my life, it's bullshit. you still have the ability to affect a lot of change in all of the other hours that you're not trading for time and money, right? You can't manage what you don't measure. It's why either doing the experiment with Toggle or some other way to track your time is essential. Because otherwise it's all narrative, and it's hard to get quantified when you're dealing with words only, right? So who here is familiar with the Pareto Principle, the 80-20 rule? Raise your hand. Oh, not a ton of you. Okay. So Pareto was a 19th century economist, and he discovered that 20% of the population in Italy controlled 80% of the land there. And then he started to recognize this 80-20 rule playing itself in other places. So we often call it the 80-20 rule, but it really, Pareto was the economist that came up with it or discovered it, right? So I want you to think about what your 20% is. Where do you move the needle at work or at home? And I'm going to give you, cough or sneeze? Oh, bless you.
Thank you.
I'm going to give you 1 minute to just think about where your 20% is, and I'm going to share with you where mine is, right? The thing that moves the needle for me in our company is when I'm speaking and when I'm networking. Those are the two things that create the greatest return on investment for us in the business. Answering an email, not a high value activity for me at the office, right? But when I'm out speaking with people, speaking typically begets other speaking gigs. Networking gets other training and coaching gigs. So the more we have me out in the field speaking, teaching, and training and networking, the more revenue we create. So there are many things that I like to do that have zero return, and it's just busy work, right? It's useless, and I should not be spending my time doing it. It's something that I should be delegating. So with that in mind, I want you to think about where your best 20% is, and I'm just going to give you a minute on the clock. So here's what I want you to think about as far as that goes, right? If you just doubled that 20% to 40%, you'd basically have 160% output. You still have 60% of the day to do anything you wanted to, and you would have just 100% doubled what your current output already is. The math there is amazing from my point of view. Right, let's talk about email. These are my top 5 tips for email. Check email only when you can read it and reply to it. At best, reading it is just wasted time because you're going to need to reread it when you reply it. At worst, you're going to read something that upsets you. Now you can't concentrate on what you need to do because you're going down the rabbit hole of the email that upsets you. No email for internal communications. We migrated everything a year ago off of email, so we don't email each other in the office. We use Slack. And whether you use any of the Microsoft products or Slack or something else, I just encourage you not to be using email internally in your operations. Don't read and answer it constantly throughout the day unless, again, that is your job description, right? Chances are it is not the most important thing for you to be doing. Automate using rules or filters. Who here uses rules or filters to pre-sort email before they get in? Right, good. A lot of people don't do that. If you are in the minority in this room, understand that any email app that you're using can pre-sort emails before they get into your inbox by keyword, by subject, by sender, by domain. There's any number of ways you can do that to get emails out of your inbox. And the last thing is that if the message is less than 15 words, you can make the subject the message, and then you can terminate it with an EOM. So it's almost like using a chat. And so you could say, Tanya, we'll meet you at the northeast corner, 27th and 3rd, 4 p.m. Thursday. EOM, end of message. First time you do this, open a bracket and just tell people what EOM stands for so that they understand, right? And then you can also end it with an NRN, no reply needed, so that you break those chains of, right, see you at 4:30. Great, looking forward to it. Me too. Oh, I've got a lot of news to share with you. Can't wait. I've got a bomb to drop as well. Back and forth, because nobody wants to be the first person to just say, stop emailing me. I got it. I'll see you at 4:30. You can give me all the information then, right? All of that's wasted time. Meetings. As I said before, I have zero tolerance for meetings. Without agendas, I don't go to them. These are my top 5 tips for meetings. Call standing meetings, and I don't mean recurring meetings. I mean meetings where people stand. If you make people stand up in a conference room, you don't give them Danish and coffee, I promise you they'll be out of that room in 15 minutes. They'll think going back to their desk is a vacation. Handouts and agendas should be distributed 24 hours prior to any event. I want your best work in the room. I don't want you making stuff up on the fly. I don't care how talented you are. Your best work happens in revision. There should be time limits for every agenda item. I don't want to be held hostage because somebody just won't let something go. I want to know how long we're going to be talking about everything we're talking about. No back-to-back meetings ever. By the end of the third meeting, you will not remember what was discussed in the first meeting. You will not even be present for that meeting. You'll be scribbling and trying to read notes off your agenda, trying to remember, like, what did I promise that I was going to do in that earlier meeting? Now, then you're going to be sending an email to somebody saying, hey, I know that I committed myself to something, or you assigned me something. What was it? All of that is wasted time. And the last thing is that the end of the meeting, just like the laundry, is not the end of the meeting. The end of the meeting is when you've debriefed yourself after the meeting, which is, again, why we don't want back-to-back meetings. The 15-minute buffer between meetings is when you're going to debrief yourself. You're going to take everything off of your agenda. You're going to harvest it. You're going to make discrete appointments with yourself, or you're going to add it to your to-do list so you can prioritize. You're not just going to throw the piece of paper on the credenza behind your desk and never look at it again. In that case, you might as well just throw it in the recycle bin. Procrastination, we're in the final stretch, folks. Why do you procrastinate? It's an excellent question. Here, it's an a la carte menu. You may help yourself. Understand there's two kinds of procrastination. There's the one we're very familiar with, which is avoidance, right? Like that, I don't want to do that. I would rather do anything other than this task. The other one is one of your 200 lies and masquerades as self-care. Oh my God, I never get any time for myself. Just 5 more minutes. This is like I'm taking care of myself. Nobody else is taking care of me. I'll take care of myself. I need 5 more minutes for this task, right? The truth is it undermines all of your time management just as effectively as avoiding something does. And then you end up time debting and feeling worse about the choice that you just made. So the thing that you thought you were doing to help yourself actually just undermines your self-confidence and your happiness. So how can we beat procrastination? Can eat the frog. That's it. Believe me, I would be a billionaire if I had a pill or some other secret that I could give you that, like, this is how you're going to trick yourself into doing things that you don't want to do. The number one thing you can do is just belly up and eat the frog. So with that in mind, the last thing I'm going to share with you is that when everything is precious, nothing is precious. I was working with a private client on Staten Island. We were cleaning out her grandmother's house. We found 2 silver objects in Grandma's house. We found a ball of aluminum foil under the kitchen sink, and we found a sterling silver tea set. Now, the ball of aluminum foil, Grandma had grown up during the Depression, so they saved everything because they never knew if they would be able to get it again. So if we would have just been in story, right, they're both silver, they're both Grandma, we just stop right there. We take the ball of aluminum foil home, it's a souvenir. Grandma will never put another piece of tin foil around that ball. So I need to keep it, right? But that's not the case. The ball of aluminum foil went in the recycle bin. The sterling silver tea set was sold at auction for $22,000. So clearly trash and treasure are not the same thing, and we need to be able to distinguish that. So if you're in the story that says, oh, I love everything equally, right? You're just telling yourself one of your 200 lies. Nothing is everything. And with that, I want you to think about what is next. What is the next thing that you're going to do based on this presentation? What's the next thing that you're going to do? I just would like to hear from 3 folks of the first thing that you're going to do to take some action and set yourself free around time management. So, anybody? Please.
Looking at ways to figure out what my core values are and define those and have written down.
Excellent.
Install Bubble.
Perfect.
Clean up my closet.
Excellent. Give him a round of applause. Thank you very much for your time.